Hello and welcome to the debate. I'm your host Maqbool with you at PTV World. In today's show, we're going to be taking a look at the very important development with regards to Pakistan-Afghanistan relationship and, of course, the upcoming visit of the Deputy Prime Minister and Foreign Minister, Mr. Ishaq Dar, who is going to be accompanying a high-level delegation tomorrow to Kabul. And this is coming after the Joint Coordination Committee meeting earlier this week as well, with, of course, the Special Representative Ambassador Mohammad Sadiq. And, of course, this is a development that is coming in line with the ways in which both the countries have experienced a trust deficit, particularly with regards to the issues of terrorism and safe havens that are being provided to the TTP as per the UN reports as well, and the kind of operational support that has been given by the Afghan Taliban regime and an unwillingness to support any particular ways in which we can collaborate on that front. But it seems with the news coming out reportedly of the Joint Coordination Committee that there seems to be a change in the Afghan Taliban stance. How much of that is true and how much of that can actually be utilized and moved forward in ways that favor Pakistan's fight against terrorism, of course, remains to be seen. But the visit is a welcome one, with the leadership, of course, meeting with their counterparts in Afghan Taliban regime, and then, of course, in the ways in which this can open further avenues for cooperation on the terrorism front, for cross-border developments, for trade and investment ties, and, of course, for the repatriation of Afghan refugees and, of course, the illegal Afghans residing in Pakistan as well. So that is what we're going to be taking a look at, particularly in terms of what can be expected from this particular visit and what are the ways forward in which the regime and, of course, the government of Pakistan can actually support each other in moving forward. For this and more, as always in the studios, I've been joined by senior analyst Raja Faisal. We've also been joined online by a guest, Brigadier retired Mr. Nawaz, who is a senior analyst, and also Ambassador Saleem, President IRS. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for joining us and being part of the show. And I'll start with you, Brigadier Saab, with reference to the ways in which we have seen this relationship develop and grow in the past and, of course, where it stands today. So I want to take first in terms of how you take this particular effort with regards to the Jirga and then the Joint Coordination Committee and now with the official visit of the Deputy Prime Minister to the country. How do you see these particular developments given the track record and the history of the Afghan Taliban as to supporting in any way possible any future trajectory that the relationship can take?
Sana, this is a very important visit to Afghanistan by a high-level delegation. I think it is the first time high-level delegation is going after October 21st, if I remember, because then Ambassadors Sadiq and so all have been visiting, but they are the highest delegation on the invitation of Afghan Foreign Minister, and I'm sure they're going to be very fruitful discussion on the matters of mutual interest, particularly security matters as well. Another thing important is that I think Jirga had been held and Ambassador Sadiq had went, so we must have got the feedback, and Government of Pakistan must be going with all the preparations with facts and figures and what all Pakistan expect from Afghan interim government and what all we can do for them as well. So in that context, I take it very, very important, and we must hope and fingers crossed that it should be fruitful and purposeful visit when it ends. Yeah, tomorrow, I think, by evening. But the important thing is that Pakistan must have decided to talk to them on so many other matters, cross-border terrorism, then it is the spread of US weapons all over, handing over to these terrorist organization, whether deliberately or uncontrolled weapons have been taken away by these terrorist organization or they've been sold to them, and the effects it being created on Pakistan whenever we have terrorist attacks in Pakistan and we find all these US weapons. This is more important. Then, of course, the border management we will discuss, and the border security forces clash at times, their support in protection from their side. I think these are the very, very important thing. And of course, in this we will talk about Afghan refugees deportation. Pakistan intends sending around 8 lakhs Afghan illegal refugees and those who are having a ACC or PR cards. But I think here they will have their own reservations. So it is going to be very open but friendly discussions, and then it should be fruitful. But the most important thing is that Pakistan must tell them in clear terms what all we expect and what all we can do if these things are not settled, because for the security of Pakistan, security of people of Pakistan, then last resort, we want that we should have the best possible relations. And we must explain them why India is so keen to come to Afghanistan and trading hurdles for Pakistan, trading terrorism, supporting PBLA, BLA, BNM, Mujahid Brigade, Farjis, as Khorasan. What is the purpose and what they want to keep Pakistan and Afghanistan away, and they want to enter in Afghanistan. So these all pros and cons we must talk in detail, and this is very important because our Prime Minister, the foreign minister and deputy prime minister is going to meet their acting prime minister. Then he is going to meet the deputy prime minister, who is basically for looks after the economic affairs. And because Mr. Dar is also having a lot of experience in finance, so he'll be able to talk to them how Pakistan can support them, how Pakistan can promote them, and Pakistan can facilitate so many things, logistics coming from Pakistan to this side. But then how we can support this, stop smuggling and narcotics, Hondi paisa coming from different direction. We have to must tell them and clarify their doubts, because still Afghanistan has an interim. It's not a politically inclusive government. They have no ethnic balanced representation. They don't have Uzbeks, they don't have Tajiks, they don't have Hazaras. It's only Pashtun who are 44%. So I feel that the result should be fruitful, and with deliberations, there should be some positive note coming from this meeting.
Right. And Faisal, your perspective on this too, given the fact that we have spoken about what the Afghan Taliban regime has been like and in the ways in which they haven't reciprocated, or they haven't really given in to their own commitments, and in the ways that Pakistan has demanded of them the kind of support and action needed in terms of the safe havens provided, in terms of the operational support to these terrorist organizations, and whether or not that's an issue of willingness or capacity is different. But in terms of the ways in which Pakistan, of course, has to fight this menace remains the same. So I want your take in terms of what exactly do you think it means when we hear reports coming in from the Joint Coordination Committee meeting pointing towards a change in the Taliban stance, or to have an overall difference in the way that they're approaching the subject?
Yes, Sana, obviously, I have deeply looked into it, and my sources are telling me that not only the common Afghan people who were, of course, living in Pakistan, some of them having the papers, right papers to do anything in Pakistan, and then there were a majority who had no paperwork at all, and they were simply living in Pakistan as aliens, I must say, because they hadn't had any legitimate right to live in Pakistan. All of these people, of course, there are many of them who are having their businesses established in Pakistan, and not only businesses, small businesses, of course, they have expanded their businesses at a larger scale within Pakistan's territory, and now of course they have a problem in Pakistan as well, related to their stays and their workers staying here, and because they have been a source of sending money into Afghanistan, and that too is one of the problems which is being faced by Taliban, TTA. And to me, I think it was just matter of the time when TTA had to realize this, that there is a sustainable input that actually reaches out to Afghanistan from within Pakistan, because the Afghan nationals who are living in Pakistan legally or illegally, they are of course contributing in the economy of Afghanistan as well. And now they have suddenly come up with the this problem, that of course once they are going back to Afghanistan, them businesses, them billions of dollars of businesses, they would no more be productive for TTA, Afghan Taliban, and now they have opened their eyes. Previously, of course, Pakistan kept on telling them that Pakistan is pivotal when it comes to Afghan trade, and Afghanistan relies on Pakistan not only in the grains or in other items, but of course there are many of the Afghan nationals who work within Pakistan, and of course they send money to their loved ones in Afghanistan, and that eventually becomes part of Afghan economy. So in this whole context, now what was required from TTA, the only thing which was required by Pakistan that Afghan Taliban need to make sure that their land is not being used for the terrorism purposes for any of the neighboring countries, including Pakistan, and to keep the house in order in Pakistan. Of course, Pakistan's authorities, Pakistan as a state will do every bit to make sure that its citizens are breathing in a safe environment. And in many of the incidents that took place that involved TTP, that involved BLA, BLF, or if it is a matter of bringing American leftover arms into Pakistan from Afghanistan, then the footprints were of course indicating the Afghan nationals. And when this is the case, then of course Pakistan has to keep its house in order, and doing so, of course, we have to go through this whole process. And if this process is bothering TTA now, then they should have thought about it, they should have pondered upon it previously, and this shouldn't have happened at all. And if Pakistan can cater Afghan nationals for decades after decades, and if they still wanted to continue feeling safe in Pakistan, then Pakistan wouldn't have been bothered at all. But if Pakistan's own citizens are not feeling safe with this kind of environment, where in all of the incidents, if their footprints are somehow either facilitation is being provided by somebody, Afghan national who's already in Pakistan. So in this whole scenario, of course, there is only one solution, and that is to make Afghan Taliban to deeply think into the essence of the problem. And the essence of problem lies in only one thing, and that is that the of course this menace, somehow it has to end. And if Afghan Taliban can come to terms with it, and they can tell Pakistan that their friendship with TTP is not dear enough to them, then of course in that context, of course they have to make their land empty of all of these TTPs, BLAs, BLFs, ISKPs, and they have to ensure that their land never gets used against Pakistan.
Right, absolutely. And let us welcome in the debate from Ambassador Mr. Jauhar Saleem as well. Thank you very much for joining us in the debate, Jauhar Saab. And I want your perspective also in terms of the nuances that we need to be cognizant of when we take this relationship forward, given, of course, the current status of the Afghan Taliban regime, given the fact that it hasn't met its reassurances internationally, it hasn't been recognized, and in the ways that Pakistan is, of course, impacted very, very directly, especially with regards to terrorism and safe havens. I want your perspective in terms of how are we going to overcome the ways in which a trust deficit has existed in the past with regards to this relationship, and in the ways that dialogue has taken previously. Do you think that that seems to be thawing a little bit?
Yeah, definitely there are some positive signs, as we all see. In fact, you recall that I've been, in my comments on this subject, I've been advocating a multi-pronged strategy whereby in terms of continuing the bilateral engagement, but alongside enhancing the regional engagement in terms of the regional mechanisms available. For instance, we have one trilateral mechanisms, one with Iran included, one with Russia, one with Uzbekistan, one with China included. So these are, and then our organizations like SCO, and of course the other prong was the international pressure through the important organizations such as the UN. And the bilateral engagement so far as that is concerned, I think in the recent weeks, what we have seen is some important visits taking place. Ambassador Mohammad Sadiq, Pakistan's Special Representative for Afghanistan, visited Kabul for what we call the Joint Coordination Committee, JCC meeting, which was taking place after 15 months. We should remember that. And these have been difficult times in terms of bilateral relations with Afghanistan, because the problem that Pakistan was having, the challenge, the terrorism emanating from Afghanistan, and despite our repeated reminders and our repeated engagement and repeated diplomatic dialogue with Afghanistan, that there was no end to it. But now it seems that, because the Ambassador Mohammed Sadiq's visit seems to have sort of, enabled some very positive dialogue. And this visit, the Foreign Minister's visit, Deputy Prime Minister's visit, now taking place, during which he would be meeting the Afghan Foreign Minister, Amin Muttaqi, who would be meeting the Deputy Prime Minister for Economic Affairs, Ghani Barada, and he'd be meeting the interim Prime Minister as well. I think that this would be very important because this level of visit has not taken place in the last 3 years. We have to remember. Alongside, I would also say that I'd also like to mention that some other positive indicators. For instance, the bilateral trade in the last 8 months, 8 months of this financial year, has increased by 84%, because in the previous years, that trade from a high mark had really dropped drastically because of this challenge of terrorism we were facing from Afghanistan, and because the Afghans were not keeping their promise, their commitment that they will ensure that their soil is not used by the terrorist groups carrying terrorist activities in Pakistan. So in recent months, we have seen this trade enhancing. We have seen all these contacts. We have seen sort of bilateral engagement, and then the trilateral mechanisms. Ambassador Sadiq, when he came back from his visit, he mentioned that these trilateral and sort of the regional mechanisms would be activated as well. And he's talked to the Chinese, and he's talked to sort of his counterparts in other countries as well. So these are all sort of positive signs, constructive signs. But at the same time, I think it remains very important that the Afghan interim administration, they keep their promises. They have to live up to the promises which have not been met for the last 2-3 years, because for Afghanistan, Pakistan remains critically important as a sort of neighbor, as a friend, as one of the largest trading partners that they have, and as a country which has supported Afghan people through thick and thin. So in that way, I think this visit that happens tomorrow would be very important, and we will be all keenly looking forward to what comes out of it.
Right, absolutely. Brigadier Harris, with respect to the ways in which we have seen in the past as well, a sort of look at the ways that the regional elements have also played a role, and of course in terms of spoilers in the region coming in from Iran, coming in from India, there has been a lot of conversation from Pakistan's side as to how this whole nexus is working. We've seen India also develop this close nexus between the Afghan Taliban regime and its leadership, and we saw something going on the side as well. This has been put forward by Pakistan many times in the past. What sort of ways can we actually approach this subject, if at all, with the Afghan Taliban regime, and in the ways in which this can be done regionally in terms of potentially a regional threat that affects all?
Sana, I think the most important thing is Pakistan is already in consultation with the Afghan government, because they want, with their immediate neighbors, they want certain mechanism that how we are going to sit down with immediate neighbors, including Russia, and then of course Russia, Pakistan, and Central Asia, then Pakistan, China, Pakistan, Iran, Pakistan, Uzbekistan. Everybody has to sit down. You see, we have to make them realize that the most important thing is that we must be having a security umbrella, security understanding, security strategy amongst our regional countries like Russia, Central Asia, Pakistan, China, Iran. You see, that is the most important thing, because it affects all. There are 24 terrorist organizations over there, and they are all affecting Uzbekistan, then Islamic terrorist movement for China, then Pakistan, and then Iran also. The Jundala group is also there. Third, we have not been able to sit together like Pakistan, Iran, and Afghanistan. You see, this trilateral meeting is very important. Iran has an influence in the northern side of Afghanistan, and Pakistan has influence in the southern side. So if Pakistan, Iran, and Afghanistan sit together and make a joint strategy, how we are going to deal with each other, how we are going to coordinate with each other, how we are going to carry certain operations together, I think that is the most important thing. It's a missing link. Iran can even handle, we can ask them to handle Indian influence over there from that side. and they are supporting BLA and BLF in Iran side. Then we talk to Afghanistan and then Pakistan. I think we must understand this regional approach first. Apart leaving this, we can, of course, we can talk to Americans what all they've done in Afghanistan, how much they will left weapon, their ammunition. The Afghan Taliban have accepted that 5 lakh, half a million weapons are missing, unknown. That means they've been sold, they've been taken away by terrorist organizations, or deliberately hidden, whatever is the thing. And Pakistan tell them, we must tell them this, how we are being facing problem as far as these American weapons are concerned. And now we can suggest certain means to Afghan Taliban that how they can retrieve these weapons if they have not sold them. That is another option. And then we must explain our Afghan Taliban that we are not sending Afghan refugees by any certain bad intentions, not at all. Because there's so much influx of Afghan Taliban, Afghan refugees in Pakistan, is a breeding place for these terrorist organizations. They got the facilitation, they're given a protection, they're given their food, everything, and then they are launched in Pakistan. So that is one of the reasons we want that area should be cleared, and 50% terror might even reduce the day Afghan refugees go back to their country. So we have to make them, they're very hard to understand. So accordingly, we must have a team should go who should have best sort of communication skills. We can tell them what all we needed, but ultimately we must tell them if nothing happens, water is already flowing overhead, then what all we have to do, we must tell them, we should be very clear about it. What all we can tell them about logistics, Afghan transit, then of course this all supporting them through our ambassador, foreign office, all things we must tell them. Nothing should be hidden from them. But the way we talk, the way we sell a point, that is going to give a win at that particular time. Not pushing them too hard, but giving them a very clear and cut message, what we want and what we expect from Afghanistan and what we can do for Afghanistan. And we have already done for Afghanistan. That is how we should be planning in that discussion.
Right, and Faisal, I want your perspective on that as well, particularly in terms of the ways that these elements have also expanded in terms of cyber warfare and threats that we have seen coming in, and then of course social media influence and propaganda. And there is a lot that of course has affected the ways in which the people of the countries and the decision makers of the different countries involved are actually viewing the subjects, and then of course using elements within those countries and exploiting particular movements and particular protests to their own interests. And I want your take in terms of when we talk about our fight against terrorism, how are we factoring in this particular ways of warfare and then dealing with them on a regional level?
Yeah, obviously, Sana, if we talk about all of these factors and how they get used, of course, we have several examples of past. Srivastava Group, EU Disinfo Lab, it opened up the whole Pandora box of India, how they have been utilizing every source possible to them to, of course, infiltrate amongst all of these, goons sitting on the social media. And once they penetrate, of course, they set the algorithms, the Indians set the algorithms, and what they want to be highlighted and how they want to be highlighted. Of course, they are the ones who are utilizing. I'm not saying that all of the voices might not be the genuine voices. Just a tiny bit, a few bit would be the voices that are on the basis of certain elements or certain sentiment that they have popped up in their own selves. But at the same time, majority of the people which are being shown as if they are the genuine people, that's not at all, because Srivastava Group and how EU Disinfo Lab laid the crack on Srivastava Group, they have a set mechanism of working, how that propaganda works. Of course, it has been shown in EU Disinfo Lab, and that is still going on, be it Balochistan, be it KPK. Of course, throughout Pakistan, the odd sentiments which you see on social media, and they keep on appearing again and again, as if somebody has put it on repeat. And who's doing it? The ones who are setting up the algorithms, and the ones who are penetrating it again and again with their influence and with their numbers, and that's how it gets revived, and that's how it gets used against Pakistan. When it comes to the TTP side sitting in Afghanistan, or ISKP and BLA, BLF, we have already known the facts about BLA and BLF, how they have been utilizing their influence on social media, and how they have been recruiting the female suicide bombers as well. And the situation and the equation was pretty much clear from their side, and that was that they were luring them in through different setups they had. Of course, few of them, they were sitting in the European countries, and they were of course doing it from there. By the way, I have highlighted it again and again, and I think there should be a sort of a connection that needs to be made up with the Western countries as well, to caution them that these people who are sitting in the Western countries, and by sitting in Western countries, they are not only inciting violence within Pakistan, but at the same time they are of course recruiting suicide bombers in Pakistan, and they are in a way propagating and promoting terrorism in Pakistan, and that needs to be checked by the Western countries as well, because this not only is a menace for Pakistan, but of course this might end up becoming a menace for their own country as well. So in this whole of course context, the social media side, that plays a pivotal role, and that is why we have kept on highlighting a very important aspect of we being being aware and cautious about it, and we need to be of course cautious enough to figure out what's going on and to crack it, and of course come up with the different policies from within Pakistan to of course counter it.
Right. Ambassador Jauhar, your take on the ways in which we can potentially look at collaboration outside of the region, particularly in terms of the US. And I want your perspective with regards to the ways in which we have seen Mr. Trump recently praise Pakistan's efforts, also with regards to our fight against terrorism and the support of the US. But in terms of actual collaboration, tangible action, tangible support, what possibilities exist for the US to actually do that with Pakistan?
Pakistan has a very important relationship with the US. That has been a very long-standing relationship, which has seen some vicissitudes. But despite all that, even today, it remains important for both sides. Now, there are certain areas, economy and trade is a big area. US is Pakistan's largest export partner in terms of our exports to the US, one of our largest trading partners, one of our largest source of remittances. Then we have a very sizable diaspora there as well. Then we have a lot of collaboration and cooperation in the international fora. That is there. We have been strategic partners. We are still the non-NATO allies. Having said that, other areas where there have been some sort of challenges. We have had security cooperation. We have had cooperation in the area of counterterrorism as well. Sometimes the US have had some skepticism in the past. But the recent statement or the mention that President Trump made of Pakistan during his address to the US Congress, the joint address, that was a very positive one. And I think that paves the way for the inception of his second presidency, paves the way for a more constructive relationship. In fact, if we recall, even during his first presidency, the relations between Pakistan and the US had actually improved. They hadn't really gone, they hadn't really started on a most encouraging note, but subsequently they took a turn, a very positive turn, when Pakistan helped the US in the negotiations with the Taliban for the eventual Doha Accord. So I see a lot of possibilities in that area of counterterrorism. Afghanistan is again a common reference for both countries. US has concerns in terms of the terrorism emanating from there, and these concerns could be growing in the coming days and months because Al-Qaeda is re-emerging there, and the other terror groups such as the ISIS and other groups which have global aspirations, which are a source of concern for West in general and the U.S. in particular. Pakistan, as we all know, have very serious concerns in terms of the terrorism happening in Balochistan, BLA, BLF, and other organizations, as well as a very major concern in terms of the support TTP has been getting from there. So there's a lot of possibilities of cooperation there. Now, recently, the two countries have also sort of, when Pakistan and the U.S., we have seen a lot of engagement in the recent times because President Trump has been there now since 3 months. Initially, there was not a lot of contact, but in the last few weeks, we saw a Pakistan delegation going there, having meetings. SAPM Tariq Fatmi was there, and he had sort of congressional leaders. Then the same congressional team visited Pakistan. They've had meetings here. Then there was a minerals conference here where we saw a substantial U.S. presence. And that is another area which I had been sort of mentioning in my comments for the last couple of months or even before, that minerals in Pakistan could be an area of possible future collaboration, because these are what we call the critical minerals, whether it's copper or some of the rarer minerals, such as lithium and even gold, because these are used in the electronics industries, very, very sophisticated, like microchips and semiconductors, and sort of, as we sort of, see the dawn of this AI era. So these technologies and these sort of, these technologies, the type of equipment they require, which requires in turn these type of metals, the importance of these critical matter enhances. And the U.S. is now looking around the world to ensure that they have access to the critical metals and minerals that they need. So I think that is an area of potentially sort of, very positive future collaboration. Okay, now one area sort of, it could be a little challenging, but also can have some opportunities, is this the new approach that the U.S. has, a very protectionist approach, and they have, as you know, they have imposed tariffs all around the world. They have imposed tariffs to the tune of 29% on Pakistan's exports to the U.S., and Pakistan is the biggest trading surplus from the U.S. So there's been estimates that it can affect about $1.4 billion worth of Pakistan's exports to the U.S. We export around more than $5 billion there. But on the other hand, they have imposed even higher tariffs on some of our competitors. For instance, India is 3% lower. For instance, Bangladesh, for instance, Vietnam, for instance, Cambodia, and China, of course, they have imposed much, much higher tariffs. So there could be some opportunities there as well. President Trump has already said that he wants the countries to negotiate, and already 60 to 70 countries have indicated their sort of, willingness for that, and that they're in the process of starting those negotiations with the U.S. That includes Pakistan as well. A team from Pakistan would be visiting the U.S. as well to see, how could we sort of, make the trade between the two countries sort of, a more balanced from the U.S. perspective. So that is a challenging area, but at the same time, there could be certain opportunities there once the two countries are able to resolve some of those the U.S. concerns and come up with a good framework, and the fact that some of our competitors are facing even higher tariffs than us. So I think what I see, what I envision is more robust relationship between the two countries, which would have both challenges and opportunities. And that is why we need to have a very sort of well-calibrated strategy, and very deft diplomacy would be required to ensure that this relationship is enhanced and there are no sort of, none of the challenges are sort of, allowed to impact the relationship, a very important relationship from our perspective and from their perspective as well. It's important to ensure that none of the challenges impacted the relationship adversely.
Right. Thank you very much, Ambassador Jauhar Saleem, for joining us and being a part of the debate and sharing your views with us. And Faisal, I'll take your perspective on this as well, given the way forward and in the ways that we're going to be moving forward. And of course, what is the likelihood of this trajectory going forward? We'll quickly take Brigadier Harris's view as well before I come to you. Brigadier Harris, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yes. So, Brigadier Harris, given that, of course, now we're seeing this movement forward, what do you think are the major challenges and aspects that we need to be mindful of as going forward, and what is the expectation here?
I think we have discussed a lot about visit of foreign minister to Afghanistan, but we must see how we are going to handle USA. You see, that's very, very important. American must realize, and it is their moral responsibility to support Pakistan, what all they have done in Afghanistan, how much weapons, ammunition they left it, and now it is affecting Pakistan. And then there is the not 24 terrorist organization over there, the global threat and regional threat. So USA must support Pakistan at least militarily when we are fighting against all the odds, and then some coalition support funds so that we can have matching weaponry, matching weapons and equipment, and we can really play at par with these terrorist organization, because Pakistan army is battle hardened, but then we need more support as far as military is concerned. And that, I think, with a lot of homework, we should talk to American, and I'm sure they will understand Pakistan's difficulties.
Right. Thank you very much, Brigadier Harris, for joining us and being a part of the debate. Faisal, anything you'd like to add?
Yeah, I would second Brigadier Harris. I think we need to talk to the Americans, especially in this context, that Pakistan is the country that has been, of course, fighting against this menace of terrorism since more than 20 years. And we were considered as the most important non-NATO ally for the Americans when it was obviously they were fighting against the terrorism, and they were fighting against the Taliban. And when it comes to, of course, Pakistan is still fighting, and Pakistan's war is still on. It might be finished for the Americans and the Western countries, but Pakistan is still fighting. And I think in this whole scenario, if they come up with different kind of sanctions on Pakistan, or different kind of tariffs on Pakistan, I think they need to sit with Pakistan, and as they are talking with other of the allies, like Western allies or Far East allies, then they have to sit with Pakistan as well regarding this, and they have to give the due leverage to Pakistan related to it.
Right. Thank you, Faisal, for joining us in the debate. As always, that's all that we have time for. We'll now see you tomorrow.